Hi, everybody. This is Malcolm Moore, host of Creativity is the Cure podcast. This is a new series of very short interviews that I like to call BLIPS, where I will talk to good friends of mine who've been on the show and offer a little new insight into what they're up to lately. So let's get on with the show. All right, we are back. This is Creativity is the Cure. And once again, I've got my good friend, Jeff DeLeone. How are you doing today, Jeff?
Doing quite well. How are you, Malcolm?
I'm great. I wanted to focus on not only creativity, but your comedy career. And so everybody knows you perform under a different name. And what is that?
That is Jefferson DeLeone. I want to make sure that when people Google me, they find me.
I've got a few questions for you about being a comedian. How long have you been doing comedy?
You know, it's really funny. Back in like the mid-90s, I was doing funny songs in rock venues. And then I just started kind of telling jokes between the songs. And over time, I started transitioning from the music stage to the comedy stage. Now, you know, the jokes are about 50% of my act and the funny songs are about 50% of my act. And I can jump from one stage to the other.
You and I know each other from when we both lived in Rochester, New York. So what is the difference in your mind of doing comedy in Rochester compared to Los Angeles?
Well, in Rochester, there's a very, very tight music and artistic scene. So it's really easy when you're first starting out to generate an audience and generate a following. But you tend to hit a ceiling after a while where you can just go no farther. In LA, it's completely the opposite. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of performers here. It's relatively easy to get lost in the rush. It's very, very hard to generate a following, but the sky is also the limit here. That's the biggest difference I really see.
Where are some of the venues that you've been performing at since you've been here in Los Angeles?
God, I've performed at the Comedy Store, and I've performed at pizzerias and coffee shops and everything in between. So many venues in Southern California.
You and I have talked about this before. Do you believe that it helps to do as many gigs as you can to really hone your act?
Yeah, you know, both the Beatles and Black Sabbath played 7 songs a night at the same club in Hamburg. And that was really where they got their 10,000 hours and became kind of bulletproof musically. And plus also, you don't know who's going to be seeing you, or, you know, whether you're doing some crappy gig in the Inland Empire for 4 people, one of those 4 might be your ticket to an even bigger gig later. So yeah, you got to hoof it and you got to play wherever is possible.
I've seen you and many other comics perform, and one night they perform and do this material, the next night they do the same material, and one night it's successful and the next night it's a complete failure with crickets. Why does that happen when you're using the same material?
God, you know, Jerry Seinfeld has a movie where it shows him bombing one night in front of a packed house.
Yeah.
There's just something in the air, and I can't really claim to have completely figured it out.
Right. And do you think that one component to that is reading the room? You've told me how you've played at different venues and you never know who the crowd's going to be or how old or how young or...
Absolutely reading the room. And some people are very, very good at it. And some people, if they're trying something that's not working, they have a backup plan. Like I find sometimes people see me with a guitar and they don't want to hear any jokes. They're just wondering, what the hell are you doing up there with your guitar? So if I tell a few jokes and they're not really paying attention, I can go right into a song. You got to have a plan and you got to have a backup plan and you got to be willing to jump from one plan to the other, depending on how things seem to be going.
On this podcast, I always focus on creativity. So what you're telling me is improvisation is not only important in your act, but you may need to change your set list depending on what the response of the crowd is, right?
Oh, completely. In a way, it's like surfing. You know, you jump on a wave and you don't really know what's going to happen. Is it going to curl over you? Is the wave going to disappear and a new one's going to come? But I think doing comedy is a lot like surfing. And you can definitely fall off your board.
Do you have any sage advice for young, aspiring comedians?
Yeah, be ready to kill your babies. You're going to have jokes that you love, that you think are amazing, and you do them 4 and 5 times and nobody laughs. You got to be willing, no matter how much you love them, get rid of them And there could be things you think are stupid that other people laugh at. But over time, you got to be ready to drop your emotional connection to material that doesn't work and try out new stuff that you may or may not be as fond of. But if it works, you keep it. And over time, you start with you can start with 20 jokes initially. Maybe you keep 3 or 4 of them, but you got to be willing to do that.
When you and I were friends back in Rochester, you got quite popular for dressing up in a devil suit. What made you change and morph into this new version of yourself?
Because nobody wants to see a middle-aged man dancing around with tights with a sock stuffed in his crotch. And also, all the times I've stood in like 1 inch of grime in the bottom of a toilet stall in the back of a club getting naked and changing to costumes. You can't pay me enough to do that anymore.
Tell us one comedian who continuously inspires you.
Steve Martin, he's about 80, and he has the most successful musical comedy act in history. He has his bluegrass thing, and he's still hysterical with his, rants with the audience between the songs, but he continues to be a tremendous inspiration, tons and tons of originality. There's no one like him, and his musical chops are fantastic. He's a real kick-ass banjo player.
What do you think it is about him that appeals to almost everybody in the world?
Oh, God. His comedy is just so based on his personality, and his personality is accessible and it's infectious.
It sounds like you're telling young aspiring comedians to be yourself. Don't try to copy someone else.
Copying somebody else can get you to a certain point, but it won't really get you beyond that.
And the many times that I've seen you perform, when I see in different venues and other comedian friends of mine, it seems that a lot of newer comedians try to use shock value, but that only goes so far, and then you have nowhere to go, right? Do you have any insight on when people have that approach?
You can do, if you're doing a sports bar, you can do a lot of shock value. You can do a lot of dick jokes, a lot of sex jokes, because you're competing with people going back to their drinks, and half of them are drunk anyway.
Right.
But if you have a sit down audience, it's not going to work quite as well. And you really got to earn their attention through being clever, through being likable, through talking about things that they're interested in. So shock value is really good for doing bars. Because you really got to land something to get their attention and get people to look up from their drinks. But if you're doing clubs, if you have a sit-down audience where people are there to be entertained, shock value will only get you so far. Although I got to admit, there are some people who have built a career on it, basically. Sam Kinison. There's a fucking reason! But he also had his own personality that people came to see. It wasn't just shock with him.
Right. And you've also expressed to me that you have to be careful sometimes because you don't know who in the audience is liberal, who is conservative, and you've got to develop a language that will appeal to everybody after you read the room. Does that sound accurate? Yeah,
and a lot of it is, some people consider themselves to be artists. Some people consider themselves to be entertainers. If you're an entertainer, it's your job to entertain. And if people come in and leave feeling insulted or feeling like crap or feeling angry about politics or whatever, then you haven't really succeeded in entertaining them. I want everybody to forget about their problems for the length of my set and leave with a smile, or I don't really feel like I've done my job. And so I tend to stay away from politics for that reason.
Now, my last question for you is the most important. You have a very exciting gig tomorrow night. Who are you performing with, and where is it, and how can people get more info about it?
Okay, this is going to be at the Dune Room, which is a bagel shop during the day and an entertainment complex at night. They usually do rock. This is their first time doing comedy. They are in Indio. The Dune Room, TheDuneRoom. I am opening for Paul Rodriguez, who is a Mexican-American legend and groundblazer in comedy, and it's a true honor.
Wow.
Some of my best friends are going to be on the bill as well. Donna Main, Richard Weiss, both seasoned veterans who've done everything from dive bars to casinos. And it's going to be an excitement-packed bill.
Who runs the Dune Room? A mutual friend of ours.
A mutual friend of ours from Rochester, New York, who is a true musical entrepreneur. 30 years ago, he was working the board, at a club called Backstreets in New York, where you and I used to play with our band Spit Pope.
Yep.
And he moved out to LA to make his fortune, and he has become a very, very hard-hitting and very influential rock manager out here. And this bagel shop turned entertainment venue is his baby. And whatever he touches in the industry turns to gold, so we're expecting very big things from the Dune Room.
Yeah, we're talking about a guy who is the tour manager for Guns N' Roses. Not too shabby.
Yeah, a guy named Ron Mesh, who is brilliant in his own right and is a self-made man.
So for people that can't make the gig, I'm sure you'll be posting some videos later. Should people go to your website, YouTube channel? What's the best way to find out what you're up to?
Both. You know, my website has links to YouTube and has links to all the streaming and social media platforms. It is jeffersondeleone.com, JeffersonDeleone.com, and I'll certainly be posting clips.
Always a pleasure to talk to you, Jeff.
Always a pleasure, Malcolm. Keep up the good work. Hello, my name is Jefferson DeLeone, and I am a scientist in the biotech sector and a comedy musician, and I am a proud sponsor of the Creativity is the Cure podcast, because creativity is central to who I am and what I do. Check out my creations on my website, jeffersondeleone.com. That is JeffersonDeleone.com.